Back here with Mr. Bradley Kimes. It's going to be a hot one today. Brad, how are you?
I'm great, man. How you doing,
I
Paul?
love it when
Happy
you do
Crypto
that.
New Year.
Happy New Year. The double thumbs up always gets the explosion on this platform when we're recording. I always have to turn that one off when I'm with Brad because I get those a couple of times. Listen, we're going to get into a lot of stuff that's happening on the global and macro side of things that affects XRP. Welcome into the XRP podcast. You guys know Brad Kimes coming in, of course, from the XRP Las Vegas event and much more, digital perspectives. What is happening with the event right now? How are the speakers lining up?
Oh, well, it's a great question, Paul. First of all, we got Paul Barron's going to be
I'll
there.
be there. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to be there. Media desk, exclusive media desk on the floor. Well, quick question. Will that be a live stream that you do there from your interviews as well as recorded, Paul?
We may do both. Yeah. I
Okay.
think I haven't talked with the team fully around what the logistics are going to be. If we live stream, which we probably will,
Yeah.
most likely, is doing some directs either into X or YouTube to kind of open up some of that. Some of it will be recorded because there'll be bigger interviews, we
Yeah.
think, that are more, I think industry relevant. Some
100.
may also be embargoed as I anticipate some news coming out of that event. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff. It's gonna be fun.
Well said. And we're
Who's a headliner? Give me one headliner.
Well, listen, we got a few of them, and then some of them we can't announce yet either. But I'll tell
Okay.
you, oh my goodness, so we got the pipeline packed. But I'll give you this already that we have. We have Ripple as a premier sponsor.
Okay.
Brad Garlinghouse on stage. David Schwartz is going to be back with us.
Bah.
And yes, and then if that isn't enough, Uphold's going to be on stage. Major, major stuff coming from Uphold this year. Watch out.
Simon will be there, or is it gonna be
Well,
one of his team?
he's been there every year. They're still
Yeah.
rolling out announcements to us now because we're just getting out of the first of the year. So everybody's just really starting to get back into the flow of onboarding and
Yeah.
getting in the pipeline. MoonPay just got on board this morning. So
Oh,
watch
that's
out for the
great.
logo and all of them. I mean,
Good for them.
and they're doing great stuff. Digital
Well, that
wallet
means
with
Caroline
Rumble.
fam.
Oh, listen, I put the word out. See if we can get, hey, let's all matter of fact in this interview, tag MoonPay and Caroline Fam and see if
Yeah.
we can get her on
Come
stage
on,
tomorrow.
Caroline.
Grossman. Yeah.
We need a good interview from Caroline.
We do, and you
Yeah.
know what? We always have an incredible legal panel every single year, and by the way, it usually has, like, James Better Lawman Murphy.
Yep.
It had Jeremy Hogan on in years past. John Deaton is gonna be on the panel. Cody
Huge.
Carbone from the Digital Chamber was on the panel the last several years. These are the quality people we have, so it would be a great addition to have Caroline, join us as well, and there's so many more too. Meme coin project, Sigma's gonna be there. First Ledger's going to be back on. So it's like
Huge.
huge stuff coming.
It's gonna be a party,
Yes, it
a
is.
big party.
Yes.
I like it. Hey, listen, we've got speaking of big parties, we have to talk a little about Clarity. They dropped the bill this morning. As we're filming this, I want to bring over a tweet I put out. Hopefully, this helps some of you guys in understanding what's going on. It boils down to a handful of things. One, there were some wins, and I feel like there is one loss, and that was the passive yield on stable coins
Yeah.
is going to be going away because this will basically redefine how custodial and ancillary staking services are recognized as an activity. Basically, if you're working your book, you're going to be able to get yields. If you're not, and you're just camping out in there with USDC or Tether or whatever they're paying yields on, that appears to be gone, which is what the banks have wanted. So that was a little bit of a win for the banks. AML KYC seems to be status quo. However, there is a little bit of information I'll bring up here from our friend over at, is it DAI? I always forget. Is it DAI?
Yeah,
Yeah,
DAI.
DAI. Yeah.
Shout out to the GOAT, baby.
He hit on this morning, and I think we'll talk about it in a second. Self-custody is still there, so you still have that right. You'll be able to maintain a hardware wallet, all that good stuff, peer-to-peer transactions, those kind of things. Obviously, we know, and we'll talk about, this is the other protection for wallet developers, which I think is very paramount, just to protect the people who are building stuff out there, especially on the ledger. So, of course, we'll see that. It's somewhat of a win for DeFi, I think, because there are a lot of exclusions in Section 309. That appears to be good. The impact on consumer DeFi products and protocols, generally protective. explicitly shielding individuals and users and software developers. But there are some warning signs, and that is that we could see a concession. Likelihood of passing 60 to 70% is what our team thinks. But this right here is what I'm a little bit concerned about. And this is them softening up on this anti-CBDC section or removing it to get it through, because they're going to have, basically a filibuster threshold to get this done. And that may be one of the factors playing into the final. Before I get your opinion on this, Brad, I want to showcase this right here, which is what DAI put out this morning as well. Section on clarity on wallets. This is on hard wallets. So Fantasyland Libertarian, I love it when he when he talks about that. Freedom think again. This was always going to end with institutional custody being considered legitimate. You'll be able to use hard wallets, but it will put you in a crosshairs of the government's suspicious activity post legislation. So talk to me about this. Why do you, and you and I have talked about this offline, DAI and I have talked about it in chats. Why do you think that DeFi or hard wallets will get in the area of concern when it comes to crypto in the future post this legislation? What do you think it is?
Oh, it's a great question. Look, I start with, the point of the Clarity Act itself and what we've seen over the last few days, which is the right and the left begin to pull back some of their positions on the matter. It's not just the left now. And I think Jake Chervinsky said it best on X. He said, the banks want their regulatory moat back, right? And they're not getting it back. And I think that speaks to the anti-CBDC loosening that a little bit. I think it speaks to this hardware wallet and cold storage wallets, right? And if we're just looking at this in that regard, I have to say, I think that cold storage wallets and hardware wallets like that are going to be an issue, because let's get post legislation and imagine, and I've talked about this for years on the channel, and I don't know if it'll happen. This is the problem I think DAI is talking about, and I certainly align with the problems there too. I love everybody to have the right to self custody. I don't want to take that away from anyone. But what I'm afraid of is that post legislation, government and the banks will work together to make it very difficult to deter you to do that. Because I'm concerned that, let's say, 3 years down the line after they do legislation, you want to go cash out some crypto on your hardware wallet or cold
Yeah.
storage wallet. Then you go to do it, and then obviously we have to go to an exchange to do it, right? And then before you can send it, it says, hold up right there. Fill out this application and tell me what you're getting ready to send to me. Where did you get it? How much was it when you got it? Has it ever been used for illicit activity or any other illicit activity?
Yeah.
That's
like the AML KYC when you deposit cash. You've got
Exactly.
to fill out, a form when you deposit over 10K in cash.
Yes.
But I wonder, Brad, do you think that we will see cottage industries popping up like what we do in the gold industry? Because right now gold, people are buying physical gold. They're putting it wherever they put it, safes, offsite, wherever it might be. At some point, they want to sell that gold. There's a lot of places that will take that gold. So do you think we'll see little cottage industries starting to pop up and say, hey, we're going to take XRP, Bitcoin, ETH, whatever it is?
I definitely think you could see a market happen, like a pawn shop or a broker, like a gold broker comes in, like you go in to try, hey man, I got this much, but imagine what that rate would be on the payout.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, the other option obviously is we'll probably see a lot of people starting to move into these crypto-centric legislative regions,
Yes.
which will be, if they're concerned with those kind of things, not that we're saying that's the route to take, but it does invade your privacy because it is an issue where, for whatever reason, you've acquired wealth, and when you are ready to online this, whether you're doing it, the traditional way or you're doing it in a way where it kind of protects you, I think this is all, the issue around the libertarian kind of approach that has been out there for quite a while.
Yeah.
I agree with what DAI is saying. I think
I do too.
either way, it's going to be a crosshair, and it's going to create this whole legitimate layer for the banks
Yes.
and the crypto community out there that are, the centralized exchanges. So I think this is just something that if we want it to fly, you're going to have to do it the right way. So it's like a maturity in the market itself kind of
I think
coming up.
so, and I think to build on your point and the point that DAI made, originally, if you just look at this and say, "Okay, well, crypto's this big and everybody in crypto's this big."
Yeah,
Well, that means the rest of the pie is the banks and traditional
bingo. Yeah,
finance,
right.
and once they give the labeling, "Hey, you can come put your stuff here."
Yeah. Well,
So
and you are talking about going from a $3 trillion market cap to a $30 trillion market cap in maybe a short period of time,
yeah,
2-3 years.
yeah,
You could see that kind of growth, kind of pairing up with where gold is right now.
yep.
And if you look at real exponential growth, you could get into a $100 trillion market cap very easily within the next decade, if in fact we see the kind of adoption rate that what appears to be coming from the major players. Other things that I don't want to harp too much on that because we have so much to talk about. We're going to talk about President Trump's potential strategy at Davos and why XRP might play a role in that. Before we get to that, I want to hit on US inflation. Came in 2.7 in December. This is another softening of inflation. You look at this right now, Brad, it appears that the Fed is losing ammo quickly. If inflation is going down or staying the same, and you can kind of see it right there on screen, and we are starting to see job loss slow, so that means we have potentially, and I talk to a lot of CEOs in various industries, and they tell me for the first time, we had a big call here last week, and I actually had CEOs say that, yeah, we think we're gonna slow down the layoffs, and we're gonna slow down the limitation of hiring. So that means they're gonna actually start hiring a little bit more. What do you think this does? Do you think this moves the market?
Well, I tell you, I think we need to get the rate cut again. We're definitely going to move the market. Yes, it's moving the market, but I think where we are right now in the process of getting the legislation done for the
Mhm.
market infrastructure is the real suppression here.
Yeah.
But obviously, this is a complement to unlocking all the markets, not just a digital asset space. So I get the frustration that the president's feeling with the Fed and Jerome Powell specifically. Look, I mean, it's no secret that Jerome Powell and the Fed had no problem working with the last administration and Biden and gave him the cuts when he needed, and he never even had to send an email. So obviously something isn't right. And I have always attributed a large part of that stance from the Fed because this administration, this president has told the Fed, you're not getting the right to make a central bank digital currency.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that may be the rub. Even though Powell has come on and been on air, we've played a couple of clips of him saying that they're not interested in it, but I think that's, front speak, coming in from, the world's bankers. So speaking of a world banker, you got to look at who's defending the Fed right now, and that, of course, is Jamie Dimon,
Oh,
doing his best to warn Trump, saying, "Hey, don't continue this attack on the Fed. We are dealing with an inflation time in which it could boost it, even though we came in flat, possibly down again on the next one." Do you feel like this is people coming to Powell's defense? Or do you feel like Diamond is just playing the typical card that he always plays against the capital markets, especially on risk assets? Where do you feel?
I do feel like Jamie is aligning here with the Fed on this one, right? And I don't see. Look, I mean, they're a bank. And what are we trying to get done right now? Legislation that cuts out the banks, right? So even though JP Morgan is moving forward with technology and innovation in this space, all of them are, as far as I'm concerned, all of them are trying to do everything they can to stall and delay the movement into this new system. And this kind of verbiage right here leans right into that argument.
Well, and it gets into the whole deal around protecting the Fed. This was a post by Meta Lawman James over there. He hit on something that I think is important. Peculiarities about Powell's statement. This was his video. If you guys haven't watched the video, I won't play, but you can go Check it out. It's well out there on X. This was on Sunday night that Powell decided to go out and make a statement, which is rare. But he said Powell is the one who decided to disclose the existence of a grand jury subpoena, not the government. Interesting. The government generally prohibiting from discussing grand jury proceedings. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Contrary to Powell's statement, service of a subpoena on the Fed is not a threat to indict him. So subpoenas are just investigative tools. It's possible that the government separately advised Powell that he was a target, but he didn't say that. So this is starting to break down a little bit here. And then nowhere in the statement, this is the one that hits home, nowhere in the statement does Powell say his testimony to Congress about the Fed construction project was truthful and accurate. And that's basically what the government is saying, is their case is that you lied to Congress. That's what they're asking. I don't know if he did or if he didn't. If it was he misspoke, didn't have the facts, could have been any of those things. But for him to say it in this way, I thought was intriguing. And James, of course, always astute, obviously a securities lawyer by trade for 25 years, I think it was. He understands these things. So what do you make? You think Powell's actually a bad guy here?
Well, look, he's at the Fed. So as far as I'm concerned,
He's a bad guy.
You didn't have to go that far, right? But shout out to James Better Man Murphy, who'll be on stage at XRP Las Vegas. He's amazing. He'll be a part of that legal panel.
Yeah.
But what I'd say to this is that, look, it's the Fed. It's the Fed. And
Yeah.
all of this is being brought on because, Trump wanted Jerome Powell to cut the rates for him the way he did without having to ask for Biden.
Mm-hmm.
And he's refusing to do it, right? So, as much as everyone wants to say that this verbiage that was used in front of Congress, was it enough to sue him or not? All of this is tit for tat to me, right?
Yeah.
Jerome Powell doesn't want to do what he was willing to do for the previous administration. That's
what it boils down to.
Right?
Yeah.
And then this investigation is all because you won't do for me what you did for him. So now I'm doing that. And then what happens? Then everybody goes, oh, Trump's trying to change the Fed and say this, that, and the other. But the reality is Trump's not getting the same respect and breadth that the Fed gave the previous administration and Biden. That's just the facts.
Well, and it is a point now, guys, that we have to face the facts that the data is coming in softer than everybody, even though the Trump administration had been saying this all along, is that we're going to see less inflation. We're starting to see prices drop. Affordability is kind of coming back. If he continues his tirade on banks where he's talking about interest rate capping on credit cards, opening up more money into the real estate market, lowering energy costs by all these, moves that he's making right now, all of which have started to affect inflation, I think. And if we get this soft inflation and jobs start coming back, what is the Fed doing with a high interest rate? So all this kind of playing into the markets here, guys, and timing is going to be everything. One point I want to hit on, I know everybody is asking about this, and that is XRP ETFs. I had Stephen McClurg on this week, and he came out and said simply, XRP ETF that they have, best ETF performer, bar none across all. Of course, here's talking about the XRP ETFs raking in $1 billion. Some analysts taking a contrarian view, saying minimal growth. I say they're idiots because this thing is going to continue. Why would you stop if you are institutional capital going into something that has upside to you? Why would you stop that?
Yeah.
You wouldn't.
It don't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
I think Stephen McClurg and certainly Matt Hogan, these guys identify with what the next wave in this space is. My God, Brad Garlinghouse identifies with it.
Yep.
He said I think it was the IFF conference over in Dubai, I believe it was. He said, we still don't have a global consensus on cryptocurrency yet. He's absolutely right. And he said basically, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said essentially that, what we have up till now is the digital gold story and speculation.
Yep.
Right. And that's not utility. And the next wave of where we're going after post legislation is utility. which one of these product protocols, which there'll be multiple ones, right, that solve a problem for a regulated financial system that allows the use of digital assets.
Well, and I think this is the key here. We are talking about a shift dramatically, I think, especially in the ETF side of things. And that point is the whole issue that we're going to see expansion not only in the ledger, but I think we're going to see expansion in the number of institutions that realize this is the only play in the ETF layer.
That's right.
And I think it's going to lead out. Mark my words, end of this year, XRP ETF will probably be the best performing of any of the crypto ETFs. By end of this year, we're going to see a big state going forward. We got to talk about some other things because one thing that is starting to roll around an analysis angle that we've been talking about for a while is a shift in global superpowers. We all know what's happening in Venezuela. We all know what's happening in Iran. You've got, I don't know if you've heard, a couple of subs coming in from Russia now off the coast of Venezuela. Have you heard this?
I have heard that. Yeah.
So interesting to me that what we may end up with is a three super state world in the next 20 years, China, Russia, US. And if you look at the Monroe Doctrine, much of what Trump is trying to do is hemispherically control what's happening here, hence movement on Greenland. Obviously, some of the what we're seeing here now in Venezuela, his alignment with Argentina, pressuring both Colombia and Mexico. It gets interesting because now you have to look at a reset because that most likely could happen. And this goes back into the whole theme of gold and XRP. And we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
What do you think would happen if he presented something at Davos that went into this vein right here, which is looking at a gold and XRP reset as basically a reserve asset instead of the US dollar? Where do you think this could go?
Boy, did you just open a can of worms here. In the best way. Look, first I want to start with, if I could, I want to go back to the Monroe Doctrine, right? The Western Hemispheric control. This has been in place since James Monroe back in 1870, whatever it was.
Yep.
So, this is not new. This is old. It's just that other presidents didn't really enforce it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, I just did a video this morning on my channel, which I talked about the 7 stages of a currency collapse from a global reserve currency. And basically, we're in stage 5 and stage 7 is collapse, right? And the reason I point that out is because I believe we are shifting in a way to protect and preserve the US dollar dominance. But I don't believe that XRP will be underpinned with just gold, because the dollar was underpinned with gold and it didn't work. The dollar's recently underpinned with the petrodollar, and that is unwinding, as we all know. What is the next thing? I believe, honestly, and I have believed this for a lot of years, Paul, so it's okay if everybody wants to call the home and send me back. I believe that the way to solve this problem is not to underpin it with one asset. I believe if you really want to create the most safest, most confident, trusting currency in the world, you must underpin it with multiple reserves.
Okay.
Oil, gold, minerals, land, the whole bit, and bonds and real land, sovereign land, all of this, reserves of all of these things from every different sector, Paul. And if we bring a reserve from every different sector and underpin that to inform the value of XRP, we can underpin the US dollar with the safest asset in the world, because the only way to crash XRP's price at that point is to crash the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. And that's where we're going here, I believe.
Listen, you and I didn't talk about this before we came on to the podcast today. Most of the time, and for you guys that don't know, we don't send our questions to our guests because we bring in people who know enough about everything in the markets when it comes to crypto, XRP, what's going on a global macro position, because we trust them. in the sense of they've done their research. And that was the case today with Brad. So what I'm going to show you was a post I put out. Well, let's see, when did I put this out? January 11th. Yesterday, was it yesterday? 2 days ago. And it was the thesis of what POTUS might do at Davos. All right. And the idea is pretty simple. And the target is the British imperial system, I believe. It's historically built on these debt traps. The IMF World Bank model, basically, they lend a lot of money to these, fledgling nations. They can't pay it back. Then they basically, reap all the rewards in their natural resources. So the move at Davos, have you noticed the list of people he's taken to Davos?
It's like his whole economic team.
Exactly.
Basically.
This post was done before that list was announced, which was yesterday.
Wonderful.
So this is my theory, is that they're going to create this whole U.S. zone of prosperity, and he might float the idea of backing the U.S. dollar with a basket of commodities.
Come on in, Paul Barron.
And especially around the new secured hemispherical oil again. And then, of course, Bitcoin, XRP, and gold. All of these assets may end up in their faith and credit. Challenge, this is a direct declaration of war on the central banking model, especially the BOE, and also Federal Reserve fiat loop that you deal with on all this stuff. So I put this out. It got a lot of traction on X, but I don't think people truly understood what this could mean. And this is what we are talking about. And I had AI do this image. This is eerie. Look at this. This is just eerie.
New Bretton Woods, baby. Listen, let's talk about this for a second, Paul. I have been calling for a long time now for the U.S. Treasury and U.S. government to issue U.S. digital asset bonds.
Bingo.
And I believe they do it for Bitcoin, ADA, XRP, Solana, and others that are HBAR, that are all going to have real utility in this space, right? Now, we know Bitcoin doesn't have a ton of utility, and I hold a significant position, so I'm not trolling here.
Yeah.
I hold it in my IRA, so that's a long-term play I've got it on, right? So I believe that Bitcoin has been converted from the white paper as currency to a Wall Street investment speculative product, which it is.
Yeah.
And I believe that if they decide to put it in a strategic reserve, then that is going to be accumulated to offset the U.S. debt. The question is how do we accumulate that without costing the taxpayer any money?
Yeah.
You do it by issuing a U.S. digital asset bond issuance on Bitcoin.
Boom. Yeah.
And now you can pay 4% to the bond holder, and you're accumulating the asset at no cost to the government.
Bingo.
And obviously, as you accumulate that asset and Bitcoin price goes up, your ceiling for credit to debt is just going up, and the debt's going down. So now you're putting headroom into your debt ceiling, right? Which is massive and needs to be done. Now let's move over to utility networks like XRP, XLM, ADA, Solana, and HBAR, and a whole bunch of others, right? Those protocols can be accumulated in the same way through a bond issuance, but the value will come from that, not just offsetting the debt, but because there's real utility happening to service the entire traditional world of finance.
Right.
That's going to drive the value up. You're selling the bond issuance so the citizens can gain a bond on that safely, right? And then you're accumulating these assets to the reserves and the digital asset stockpile that give you some of the most important assets for the next 150 years of our life.
Boom. Well, I think this is something that I know it's almost, they're not saying it, at least. Well, he did say it in an interview about 6 months ago where he said, hey, listen, our old system is fragile. It's not ready for this. We believe there's a new system. I know, and you and I have talked about that clip here on this show of saying that Trump already knew months ago that this was essentially the model that could be played out. I think the key, of course, is these very strategic positions. Venezuela was move number one. Greenland, I think, will probably be move number two. Possibly some pressure on Mexico and also on Colombia that will at least stabilize the region in the sense of being able to control the hemispherical component, which is kicking China and Russia out at the end of the day.
Yep.
And once they have that, then I think they can go to the game and start to offer these kind of resource opportunities. Because I put out a tweet about, hey, what happens if they just open this technology up to all of Venezuela with all these raw materials and they just tokenize this stuff? And you give Venezuela the benefit of being able to yield against that immediately. So huge opportunities are waiting. Man, we are in this. I don't think people realize that this was going to happen in our lifetime, but I think it's going to now.
I do. I really do too, Paul. And I think it happens in the next few years. And I don't mind adding into that. If you look at Venezuela and the fact that, there's Russia and China down in there just pillaging the place for their own benefit and gain, discounted oil, building ports they want, all of this stuff. For people who are having struggling understanding that, I'll tell you how I look at that. I look at that as the same thing as the 60s Cuban Missile Crisis.
Mhm.
Is no different than when Kennedy told Russia, "You're not putting missiles in Cuba." Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's no different than Ukraine and Russia, where Russia said, "You're not putting any missiles for NATO in Ukraine." That's Cuba to them. That's their Cuba. That's their Venezuela. They don't want missiles in Ukraine either, right? So we don't want control of our adversaries in the East to have power and position in the Western Hemisphere where it could be just as harmful as the Cuban Missile Crisis was. That's
Mhm.
why Greenland's important. That's why Cuba's important. That's why Venezuela's important. Hell, that's why Canada's important, right? So all of this really comes down to, and by the way, of that 7 stages of a currency collapse as a world reserve currency that I covered this morning, one of the stages of that collapse is when the reserve currency country decides to expand because they believe it'll never end for them.
Yep.
And they expand their military across the world to keep the effect and power and control and dominance of their dollar as the world reserve currency by helping the other nations around the world. Well, Paul, the funny part about that is that when you think about that, we now have over 750 military bases all around the world, and a lot of them are in countries that don't even care for us.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
why not bring all of that back,
Bring it right
eliminate
back
what you
into the
don't
Monroe
need,
Doctrine.
and control and lock down the Western Hemisphere
Bingo.
before you're about to tokenize the entire world and put all the sovereign nations on blockchain, and then it's immutable after that.
This absolutely destroys the EU.
Exactly.
And the euro dollar.
Agreed.
It shifts the power. Russia probably sees this as it's game on, in the Western or Eastern Hemisphere outside of China. And you look at what's going on, because of course the big counterattack will be, I think you'll see the Islamic wars that will probably rage on in Europe, possibly even into threatening Russia or some of the Eastern Bloc countries in the future if this actually comes to be. So this is going to be a very interesting next 20 years, for sure. I'm just wondering, I think it's going to be if we truly get a Western hemispheric control and we have kind of this region of prosperity that could be blowing up with a lot of these countries in South America, could be huge opportunities. Venezuela just might be the beginning of it, so.
Yeah.
Huge stuff, man. We're going to cover this and much more for you guys on more podcasts. We should probably break down the idea of a currency debasement on a podcast to help people understand why XRP is a big part of this. And it's kind of the ultimate medium of exchange, especially in a crisis, because you don't want to move gold, or you don't want to deal with a lot of these heavy congestion blockchains. XRP is perfect because it's designed for velocity. So it might be a good one to cover on our next podcast. And hopefully you guys like this. If you're not following Digital Perspectives, you know what to do. Hit it out there on X and on YouTube. Brad, always fun having you on the show, man.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. And if I could give one more thing about XRP Las Vegas to people, I want to let them know that we just recently, in celebration of the markup vote week, which is now the markup vote month, but until January 18th, you can get all your tickets discounted. And everybody who's bought a ticket, my wife and I spent the weekend price matching every previous ticket holder, hundreds of ticket holders. So listen, It's
Do it
now
now.
gone from $900 GA ticket to $589. So go.
Okay, I'm going to put a link. I'm going to
Oh,
put a link in the description so you guys can get to that. Brad, send me a link that you want to use for the sign up if there's a special one.
I sure
Or
will.
is it just the regular website?
Yes, XRPLasVegas.com for anybody who wants to go get their ticket before
Perfect.
January 18th.
All right, hit that, guys. Tell them PBN sent you, and I will see you guys out there because it's going to be a hot week of amazing interviews, insights that I don't think you want to miss. And of course, the biggest advantage, you get a chance to meet everybody else that's in this zone of understanding, which is a whole different world for sure. Hey, Brad, it was good seeing you, my man.
Thank you so much, Paul. Always a pleasure.
You guys know what to do. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thanks for all the love out there. We appreciate that. We'll catch you next time right here on the XRP Pod. Take care.